Sure. Hi, I'm David Lontok. I am the CEO and president of Comprehensive Community Health Centers. We are a federally qualified health center. I've been in healthcare for about 3 decades. I started on the health plan side, spent about a decade there. Then I moved to the physician management side of the business, running risk-bearing organizations, and ultimately landed here on the nonprofit side. I'm directly running a provider network. I think our biggest challenge is, just is talent, right? Trying to find the appropriate talent. Our pay scales are, we like to think they're kind of competitive or somewhat competitive, but we don't, because we're a nonprofit, we don't have a huge budget. So competing with the Kaisers of the world is kind of difficult for us. So it's been talent acquisition and trying to find the right candidate for the salary that we're able to pay. Well, when we cannot find someone, given what I just shared with you, that's when we have challenges, especially with our patients. If we're not able to hire providers, which is a big part of our workforce, that impacts our ability to provide access to care to the patients that we serve. And if we don't find the appropriate talent, the challenge is, you spend a lot of time bringing someone up to speed, determine that they're not a good fit for you, and we wasted a lot of time and effort trying to get that person to where you need them to be, and you have to start all over. So that's also a challenge. I think the biggest one was your approach. There's two things I'll call out. One was, we talked to a couple of larger firms, and they have specialists in different areas. Whereas with PX3, it's a little bit more of it felt like a more of a boutique firm. And, we're working with you, the principal, directly. We felt like we would have a lot more attention in a setting like that. And especially with an organization like us, we're, medium sized. So we're not large. We're certainly not small. So that was one. The other was I like the approach you take with the video presentations of the candidates. That really kind of helps us. It creates a lot of efficiency in terms of the interview process and try and whittle, a large pool of candidates down to a manageable size. So that was very attractive to me, that approach, because it's one thing to read about a candidate on a piece of paper. It's a whole nother kind of see them, and kind of hear what they have to say. So I really appreciated that approach, and that really kind of set you apart from some of the other firms that we were looking at. I mean, certainly we looked at, just running the ad ourselves and doing it internally. Cost is always a consideration. And so, recruiting fees was, one of the things in the back of our mind, is this something that we should invest in? But I had heard a lot of horror stories from my colleagues who run FQHCs in terms of just the amount of time that it takes to find candidates. And, we've had um, a lot of experience, let me just say. Well, that's not the right way to word it. Um, we've noticed that the candidate pool is not as strong as we'd like it to be. And so one of the considerations was, if we run an ad, how many resumes are we going to have to go through to find that diamond in the rough? And is it worth our time to save the money and do it ourselves versus, you know, pay for the service through a firm such as yours? And so, we ultimately landed on it makes more sense to outsource this, pay a firm to help us find the candidates, because we're all full-time jobs, so to speak. We have other things we need to focus on. And so, it just made more sense for us to go this route. It was good. It was a good experience. I appreciated the follow-ups. I will say, because I've worked with other firms, it was your touch points were on par with what I've experienced with other firms, maybe a little bit more. I think where you were a little bit different than some of the other firms is when we had our list of finalist candidates and we had, a more direct dialogue on, some of the pros and cons. I like that. I had not experienced that with any other firms in the past, but in terms of, just working with PX3 in general, it was a very good experience. Speed. It's funny because you had cited about a 90-day period of time, and I thought to myself, 6 to 9 months. If we get someone in 90 days, great, but 6 to 9 months was kind of what I was thinking. So I was very impressed with not only the speed at which you identified candidates, but the quality of the candidates that you identified, and within that 90-day period of time. So that was the most impressive. Well, we found a good fit. We found the right candidate. As you know, we had three candidates that all brought different things to the table. And I like that because that helped us kind of, hone in on the right candidate for where we were or where we are and what we need, at least for the immediate future. And so, that was a real value add for us was, being able to have that pool of candidates to select from versus just one and, having to roll the dice with that one candidate. So that was very helpful. It's been good. It's still a little early on. The this is a C-level position, and so it takes some time for that individual to get their arms around the organization, understand who we are as an organization, our personality, our priorities. But so far, so good. I've gotten very good feedback from my staff in terms of my interactions with the candidate, and just from what I can see and my interactions with her up to this point, she's definitely a value add for us. I think she's going to really help us get to the next level, in our journey. And that's what we were looking for, is someone to, take us to the next level. It's been good. I mean, we had a few check-ins with you, which is to be expected. We don't expect to have ongoing dialogue, with the firm once we, have the placement, unless of course there's an issue, but so far so good. So, the interaction post placement has been good. It's been on par with, what I would anticipate or expect from any other firm. Oh, absolutely. I would definitely endorse you. And again, I've worked with several different executive recruiting firms in the past. And so combination of what I shared earlier, there's that boutique feel and working with you as a principal, and then your approach with the recorded candidate interviews really just creates a lot of efficiency and effectiveness for the process. So I would definitely endorse you guys, for to any of my to any of my colleagues who would be, who are looking for assistance in this area. Well, it's like anything else, right? If we do a good job for our patients, we want them to give us a review, right? We want them to share their experience with us. And so when you ask me, we had a good experience and I wanted to share that, and serve as a reference point for you. So that's primarily the reason. Just to be candid, it helped a little bit, but not. I didn't put a lot of weight in that, just because you would expect testimonials to be favorable, right? I wouldn't expect someone to bash you and be on be posted on your website. So,
Sure.
it was nice to hear, but it was really, I watched it more out of curiosity. I didn't expect to hear anything that would be a cause for a pause. Generally favorable. I'm trying to think back. I don't know that we ever had any um, poor experiences. Maybe the only poor experience that I had was with a recruiter. Then this is probably 2 decades ago now at this point, um, who we use for several different placements and would tend to recycle the same candidates for different positions, and that was a bit of a turnoff. And he was a one-man show. So this was not a larger firm. Um, but in general, I've had a very favorable relationship with recruiters in the past, and a very favorable experience. And so I was very open to it. Again, it really came down to, you know, do we want to save our costs in terms of the fee and do it ourselves, or do we want to put it out there and pay the fee, and in this case, it made more sense to make that investment, and we got a better product, I think, at the end of the day, as a result. They haven't changed that much. I still have a favorable impression of executive recruiters, such as yourself. So hasn't really changed much, because again, I've had good experiences in the past working with some of the other firms, and so still favorable. Good question. There's a couple of things that come to mind, but I think at the end of the day, the part of our engagement that I appreciated the most was when we had a candid discussion about the candidates. That is something that I had not experienced with other firms. Most other firms, though favorable, have just kind of pushed for whatever candidate we were leaning towards and didn't take the time to say, here's a few things that you may not have picked up on that you should be aware of. And so I would think, I would say that out of the entire experience, which was overall positive and favorable, that's the part that really stands out for me, is that we had, that discussion kind of went through the pros and cons, and it was helpful to have that because you do this day in and day out, right? And we don't. And so there are things that you picked up on that we didn't necessarily pick up on because this is not our space. We're in the business of caring for patients, not looking for talent. So that is what stands out most for me.